So what if I told you that everything that you're building or everything you've been working on, what you're so proud of, doesn't belong to you in the first place? It wasn't yours to begin with. That you can't, and you didn't, build it on your own. Now, if that feels a little weird, that's probably because our society is self-obsessed. Me, 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 me. It promotes the idea that success is an individual endeavor, a solo sport. She wasn't with me shooting in the gym. And while that might sound catchy, that version of the story is incomplete and leaves us empty. And to be frank, it's an outright lie. The truth? We're all on a relay team. We receive from someone and we give to someone else. Everyone in every story has a cast of supporting characters who may not make the ending credits, but were essential to the outcome. Nobody, and I mean nobody, gets anywhere without we. We is a network. It is a village of people who supported, who listened, who challenged, who uplifted, or simply held space. A parent who sacrificed. A coach who showed up when no one else would. A friend who believed when you didn't. A community that created a safety net. Me ends when the person does, but we creates a legacy. I'll give you an example. We saw this play out in real time in the life of the legendary Kobe Bryant. In the beginning, the media portrayed him as singularly focused, greatness at any cost. But over time, that narrative changed. We saw that he coached his daughter's basketball team, that he mentored other players in the NBA, that he had great relationships with team members, contrary to popular belief, with his teammate Pau Gasol. He won an Oscar. He did so much more. By the end, when he was gone, we did not mourn an NBA champion. We mourned the man who he was, the example that he gave and showed us that rippled out to us all. What we forget about Kobe's legacy is one essential thing, that all the shiny accomplishments in the world don't really matter. What matters is who we carry and who carries us. And my family showed me the perfect example. So by way of background, I am an only child. And I'm an only child in the way that you think of only children. I do not share food. And do not call my mama mama, because that is my mama and my mama only. So the idea of individualism appeals to me. I didn't have to share toys. I didn't have to move anything out my toy box to make room for someone else's. Everyone only thought of me, rightfully so. But as an estate planner, I had to talk to people every day about their legacies. What mattered? What did you want to leave for someone else? And I saw a common thread. Legacies are rarely, if ever, created by themselves. They depend on people depending on other people. And as clients shared their story with me, I shared our story with them and began to see how my family showed me that throughout my life, if I was listening. So my great-grandmother, Alice Imogene Diet, came to the United States from Salem, Montserrat in 1919. She moved to Boston, Massachusetts. During her lifetime as a maid, she bought 2 homes with 2 minor children by herself. My mother and my grandmother moved into that house, the second house, the house I know, my house, really, when she was 10 years old in 1964. And this house was in a cul-de-sac in Dorchester, Massachusetts. Now this house, it was just a 2-family house. But this neighborhood, we knew every neighbor, Mr. Pittman, Miss Miller. I played every summer and every winter with their grandchildren and grew up with these people. This was the house that centered our family. And there were 2 things my grandmother always said that I never forgot. 1, you better not put her in a home. And number 2, she used to be worried that she would lose her memory. And so maybe that's why she's the main person in the family who did some estate planning. So my great-grandmother left the house to her. And then my grandmother put the house in my mother and my uncle's name and gave herself a life estate. She also got a healthcare directive and a power of attorney and got long-term care insurance. Now, I'm not sure who told her to do that because nobody else in the family did, but she did it. And so ironically, when I was in college, she had a stroke and she was diagnosed with dementia, the one thing she didn't want to happen. My uncle moved back to Boston in my great-grandmother's old unit at the top. My mother, who was a full-time real estate agent, got a job part-time working at the airport for Delta so she could fly back and forth as much as she wants. And they took care of my grandmother. And then her long-term care kicked in and Nurse Amanda used to come to the house every day to take care of my grandmother. And so by the end, my grandmother, my grandfather, my step-grandfather, Whiskers, my grandmother's husband and ex-husband were in the house. She didn't remember, so it was fine. But we didn't want to put anyone in a home because we promised. However, 2013, everything started to change. Between 2013 and 2017, everyone on that side of the family died. It was like my mother and I were going to a funeral every 4 or 5 months. I had just started practicing. I couldn't help her. And in 2017, the last person in that row of people who passed away, my uncle, he died. And my mother had to fly back and forth by herself for 3 years in probate court, fighting with creditors and whatever else. And I saw a different version of my mother. I remember her telling me that she felt alone because all of her ride or dies were gone. Now, of course, as the only child, I was like, what do you mean? You have me. So she finally sold the house in 2020. She sold the house to Nurse Amanda, who took care of my grandparents, so we can still go see the house. She wanted someone to take care of it. And then we moved on a little. Then on March 14th, 2024, my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And we were alone. It's just myself, my mother, and my cousin left. And he lives in Boston. So it was just the two of us down here. And as you recall, I'm an only child. And I have my own law firm. So I didn't know how I was going to be able to take her to the doctor. I have to kill what I eat. So if I didn't go to work, I couldn't pay my bills. Thankfully, that house was left to her. So she didn't have to worry about paying for her living expenses or for her doctor or for any of those things because they left this house. But I needed my family. And so we had to figure out what to do. Or my mama figured out what to do. I don't know which, but I know my phone started ringing. And so all of these people who we lost, I feel like they showed up in other forms. I didn't have to take my mother to every doctor's appointment. My mother's friends would come in town for a week at a time to stay with her. She had blackouts. She couldn't eat food. I've never been so scared in my life. But family showed up in other forms. And I remember sitting on my mother's couch while she was upstairs, and I got a phone call from Miss Amanda. Now, she didn't know my mother was sick because my mama told me don't tell her business. And she asked me to help her put the house in a trust because she told me that she reminisced about my grandmother and how much she loved my grandma and how much grandma said that she loved us. And she wanted to do for her family what my great-grandmother did for my grandmother and what my grandmother did for my mother and my uncle. So she wanted to take care of this house so her kids could have it. And so she talked and went on, and I whispered to her that my mom was sick, and she told me, don't worry about it, y'all are gonna be okay. And I got off the phone and I cried. And I just was grateful for the example that my grandmother had set for her to want to do the same thing. And the example that my grandmother had set for my mother, because she said to me that she learned how to be a friend from my grandmother in that house. My grandmother had a group of girlfriends who she'd been friends with since she was like 12. And my mother grew up with their children like they were siblings. And they were at everything. Aunt Lillian, Godmother Cretion, Uncle Mikey. I know all of these people, and they were not our blood relatives, but they showed up for my mother when she needed. And when my mother made a call, People showed up for me so that I didn't have to worry about her or how we were going to have to take care of everything. And so that's what I think of when I think of that house. That's what I think of when I think about legacy. She didn't have to win an NBA title to create it. All she had to do was make a call. And this is the house that Alice built. She learned this from Alice Imogene Diet and Dorothea Cecile Rowling. Alita Cecile Saunders was the beneficiary of the legacy of others and passed that down to me so that we could take care of her when we needed to. So I ask you right now, what house are you building? Who are the people 60 years from now who will benefit from the decisions that you're making today, from the way that you treat people? I didn't do any of that. If it was just me, I don't know how we would have taken care of my mother. But because of how my mother showed up in the world, people carried us because she carried them. And so if you hear someone tell you that they're self-made, I want you to question that because it's a lie. Ask them whose shoulders are they standing on and who are they going to lift up? Because self-made is a myth, but we is real. And in the words of Maya Angelou, while I stand up here by myself as one, I stand for 10,000. And that is a beautiful thing. Thank you.